Okay, good morning, everyone. Um, we're just waiting for a few people to join. My name is Florence Akpan, founder and lead consultant here at InfoPlace Canada, and I have with me Sharon and Asher, our consultants here at InfoPlace Canada. So while we're waiting for people to come in, I see we already have about 12 people here. I'm going to let Sharon go ahead and introduce herself, and then after that, Asher, while we wait for people to come in. So thank you for those that have already joined and are seeing us right now. If you can hear us and see us, please leave in the comment section where you're joining us from and what time it is right now where you are. Go ahead, Sharon.
Okay, so good morning from here, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be joining from. Welcome to our info session. My name is Sharon Bosco. I am an RCIC, a regulated Canadian immigration consultant here at InfoPlace. And yeah, we're looking forward to answering a lot of your questions today. We process all kinds of applications from study permits, permanent residence, spousal sponsorship, LMIA work permits. So yeah, looking forward to answering some of your questions and clarifying some of your queries today.
Perfect. Thank you, Sharon. Over to you, Aisha.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aisha. It's spelled Asha, but it's pronounced Aisha. So just a quick clarification for everyone here. I am an immigration consultant and case manager here at InfoPlace Canada. So if you've had a session with me, nice to see you again. If not, it's really nice to meet you. Like Sharon said, looking forward to answering everyone's questions and kind of seeing how this conversation goes today.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction. And thank you so much, everyone who has joined. We have people, we have Aziz here. We have Benjamin. Hi, Benjamin from Uganda. How are you? We have Dennis from Mississauga here in Canada. We have Oluwadamilola from Nigeria as well. Kenya, good evening. Thank you all for joining. Please just leave your location and time where you're joining from. It is 12 p.m. CST now where I am at. Hello, Ngozi from Nigeria.
Hello, Ngozi. Hello, Ngozi. I've talked to Ngozi before.
Yes, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining Rosie from Nigeria. Okay, so this session is going to be very, very, it is your time. We don't have a lot, we want to get your question answered and we have an hour and I don't want to even take even a minute of that from you guys. So if you have immigration related questions, we received some already through our Instagram page and I'm going to start with those. And the moment your questions start popping up for people who have joined now, I will be pulling out those questions on screen and then we'll be talking about it and getting answers for you. All right. So the first question we have here is someone has asked us on Instagram, I'm an international student in Canada. When would be the best time for me to apply for PR? So I'm going to let Sharon talk about that.
Well, the best time to apply for PR, that's a bit like how long is a piece of string, really. The best time to apply for PR very much depends on your personal circumstances. You may have come to Canada already eligible for a permanent residence program, in which case you can apply before you even come. You may arrive in Canada and you may be able to apply for PR as soon as you arrive. For other people, you may not yet be eligible for a PR program, but once you've finished your study program, you then get more points in your express entry pool, in which case then you can apply for PR. For others, you may need that 1 year of postgraduate work experience before you can apply for PR. Others, you may need a job offer. For some people, for majority of students, you're only allowed to work 20 hours per week while studying. But for some students who are already in Canada, some students are already, they're eligible for a program where you're allowed to work 40 hours a week or more than 20, in which case, if you're working full time and building up work experience, then you may be eligible to apply for PR right now. So there is no, this month is the best time of the year to apply. It very much depends on your personal circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sharon. It depends on personal circumstances. And a lot of times, one of the things that we would always advise clients to do is check your eligibility. Don't just wait. Don't just go by what other people are doing, because you may be eligible right now or even before you even came and things like that. So always ensure that you're in the know of what is going to get you eligible to apply for PR at any point in time. That is very crucial. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm going to put up some questions here that we are just coming in so that we can take it. So Abdul Salam has here, I'll first of all apologize if I make a mistake in pronouncing your name. Just forgive me. I will do my absolute best. But Abdul Salam has this question here. Good day, info place. I applied for a visiting visa after submitting a spousal PR application. However, the 30 days window has elapsed and yet to receive a response on the visiting visa since July. So I guess your question is, what should you do? Or is this like, what is your question there? I'll let Aisha please take that question in terms of what can this client do with the delay? Obviously, the 30 days is done.
Yep, absolutely. So just something to keep in mind, the processing times that IRCC puts out is what they hope to process applications by. It's not guaranteed. So in your specific situation, it could be maybe that, they're just double checking something or they're verifying something. So it's not abnormal for applications to fall outside of the processing time. So as of right now, if it's just a little bit outside of the 30-day window, give it a little bit of time, let IRCC do their job. That's what I would say. I always say with IRCC, my favorite saying, don't poke the bear. If they are processing, sometimes it's best to just let them do what they need to do. But if it's fallen out largely outside of the processing time, something that you could do is send a web form. So if you send them a web form and just say, hi, I'm just inquiring about, the status of my application. If you guys need any information to kind of help assist with the processing of my application, please let me know. That is something that you could do. But with that being said, do not send web forms every day. Don't overdo it.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't do it all the time. You don't want the visa officers to kind of stop looking at the web forms that you send in or disregard what you're saying. So be patient. That's the best advice that we could offer you.
Perfect. That's good. Thank you very much, Aisha. That definitely answers that. And with it's just patience. The processing times that they post out there, it's not exact. It's a good gauge to what it might be and things like that. So as we go through here, if there are questions that are repeated questions that we've already answered, I'll skip those so that we can have a diverse range of questions that we're getting answered here as well. So we have here from Benjamin. Benjamin has a question here. What PR options are there for international students pursuing business courses in British Columbia and other provinces? That's a very broad question. I'm going to let Sharon tackle that.
Well, I know Benjamin. I'm doing Benjamin's application right now. In fact, we submitted it 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So hello, Benjamin. So in terms of an international student pursuing a business course in British Columbia, the different options for British Columbia, BC is quite a good province to be a student in, because when it's got various pathways for international students, specifically those who are pursuing a business course. Not necessarily, they don't have a specific business program. They have in BC, they have a skilled worker program. All of which require a job offer. So if you were to get a job offer in BC, there are several pathways that you can go through. There is a skilled worker pathway. There is an international graduate pathway. There's an international pathway for people who've done masters or PhDs. I think the thing to bear in mind is that you need a job offer. So you would need a job offer from a BC employer. So because you in particular, Benjamin, haven't actually started your program yet, it's something to think about even before you arrive in Canada. Even before you arrive, have a look at different job options, different employers. And as soon as you arrive, start looking for jobs. Start looking for jobs that you can do part-time while studying. And then try and line up employers who want to employ you part-time for now and then perhaps want to employ you full-time once you finish your program. Because what a lot of students do is get towards the end of their program and suddenly start to panic and say, oh, how do I apply for PR?
Yes.
When actually you could have put the wheels in motion a year ago. You could have started looking for an employer rather than scrabbling around right at the end of your program and saying, I need a job. So my advice would be, whatever your program is, province you are in, have a look, start looking for employers right at the very, very beginning. Talk to your course tutors, say, I want to look for a job in a business area following on from my program. What are your recommendations?
Yes, very good. Excellent. Leveraging all of the things. The moment you arrive in Canada as an international student, for people that are coming, it's not, honestly, if PR is part of your long-term goal, you've not arrived. That's what I tell people. I'm like, start right from there to explore what is it that you need to do to get to PR, because like some of you probably already know, it's become very competitive to get PR now. Even coming into Canada as a student doesn't guarantee. It is a proven pathway to PR, but it doesn't guarantee that you will get PR, because there's lots of competition, lots of international students, and even temporary foreign workers that are already here that want to get to PR. So getting ahead of yourself and really looking for what that pathway will look like for you is key to being successful on your PR application, on your opportunity to actually transition from temporary residence to PR. Thank you, Sharon. Okay. We have Emmanuel. Emmanuel has a question here. It's like, what is the best proof of employment for a PR application? Aisha.
Okay, so when you say proof of employment, I'm assuming you mean the documentation that you need to kind of support the employment that you're claiming points for. So for in any situation, if you're claiming points, if you're gaining points in your express entry profile or whatever application for permanent residence that you're submitting, if it's providing you with those points, then I would say you are looking at your initial job offer, if you have that, your pay slips that demonstrate that you've actively been paid by your employer, as well as an employment reference letter. So in that reference letter, it needs to clearly state your job title, how long you've been with the company, as well as the duties that you perform with this employer. So with each job that you're holding, there's an associated NOC code. So you want to ensure that your reference letter kind of corresponds with the NOC code and verifies that the duties that you have performed in this employment is in line with the NOC code that you're claiming and gaining points for. So those are some things that you would be looking at.
Yes. And I would just add that, because a lot of times I've seen cases where a client is not able to get the documents that they need, like that reference letter from a previous employer and things like that. I usually ask people, just think back at what IRCC is trying to verify when you're thinking about proof of employment. IRCC is trying to verify, number one, that you were paid for that job. Number two, they're trying to verify your start and end date for that particular job. The third thing they're trying to verify is what your job title was and what your job description was. So by the time, if you have other documents and other proof of things that could help you support and provide those specific details and information for IRCC, it may not all come in one nice reference letter. It could come in from your employment document, from your employment offer letter, from the job description posting, from a job description internally in your company, from a news article if the company has closed down, all manner of the different ways. But just remember, what are the key things they're trying to verify, and how can I show that in my documents? So there's no one size fits all, but just ensure that IRCC would be able to verify all of those things I mentioned in the documents that you're providing for proof of your employment. All right. Okay. I hope that answered your question, Emmanuel. Let us know. Give us a thumbs up if we're answering those questions for you here. Okay. Let's go to the next question. We have Kusika Eniola. Having a score of 430 in express entry, what can I do looking at how the pool is going right now? I am in Ontario, by the way. Sharon, what can we tell Eniola here?
Right, Eniola, this is something that we come across a lot, because getting express entry, getting permanent residence through express entry is becoming more and more challenging. And it's become more challenging since COVID. COVID spoiled a lot of things, including a lot of things to do with Canadian immigration. And what we're looking at now is scores of needing around about 500 points. And 500 points for the best of us is a very difficult score to achieve.
Yes.
So we would have to have kind of a deeper look at what your eligibility is. What are your language scores? What is your job situation? What is your what is your background in general? Because 430 could be, I don't know where those 40 or 30 points have come from. What a lot of the time people can improve their language score and boost their points up considerably. Another thing that we tell people, which a lot of people laugh at, but a lot of people, you can boost your score enormously by adding French. This is for everybody to hear, because if you're looking for permanent residence in Canada and your score is a bit low, if you were to add a sort of upper intermediate level of French in a test, then you could boost your points up 70, 80 points possibly, which could, if you had 430, you could boost your points up to over 500 points. And for a lot of people, they think, well, I don't know any French. I can't really be bothered to learn French. But if you're already in Canada, you could be gaining work experience. You could add another year of work experience to your in Canada to your points. You could boost a language score. You could add French to your score. There are a lot of different things you could be doing. I don't know if you're a previous student. Maybe you could add a study credential to your points. And the other thing is to look at different provinces. Having a score of 430, you don't have to stay in Ontario. Nobody's telling you that you have to stay in Ontario. I think a lot of students, when they graduate from a certain province, think, well, I need to look for a job here. But if you can go and look for a job in Nova Scotia. You can go and look for a job in Alberta. You're not held back. You're already in Canada. Have a look at different programs, and also have a look at I don't know what your background is in, but if it's in healthcare, if it's in tech, if it's in any kind of trade, there are different pathways across Canada where it doesn't matter how many express entry points you have. There are some programs across Canada where you don't even need an express entry profile. Always boil down to express entry. If you had 1 year of work experience in one of the healthcare occupations, you could get selected for express entry even without lots of points. So there are lots of different avenues and different ways you can do it. It's not just a blanket, I've only got 430, therefore I've got no choice. No chance.
Perfect. No, that's great. And even to add to what Sharon has mentioned, there's a rural Northern Immigration Pilot Program, and about 5 of the communities are actually in Ontario as well. If you don't know about this program, you should. If you're listening to us, if you're an international student in Canada, you're listening, look into those communities and apply for jobs there, because it is not anything linked to express entry. I once chatted with a potential client, and she was like, oh, I didn't know I could apply to those communities because I thought I had to school in one of them to apply there. It's open to anyone across Canada. They have some great jobs in some of these communities. Apply there because it would open up a fresh new door to PR for you that is not one that is tied to express entry and things like that. And definitely exploring other provinces could be it. I always say, if you've not gotten to PR, you're really not tied to any place. So go where you will have options. And when you're applying and looking at opportunities, you should be tying it closely to what would my PR pathway look like, because that would be very helpful as well. All right. Thank you. We'll go to the next question here. Lots of questions. You guys are filling up our question pipeline here, which is great. We're scrolling through. I will be picking them. Would you advise a married person of above 30 years old to use a sponsor? The main POF is a student loan, but considering an uncle sponsor in addition as additional funds, P.S. the loan amount is sufficient. Aisha, go ahead.
Okay, so a little vague. I would ideally want to see a little bit more details here, but if you are concerned about kind of age and sponsor, that's not really what your area of concern should be. I would focus on, if your loan is sufficient to cover how much you need. So you would need your full tuition fees, your living expenses, as well as travel costs. So you're looking at all 3 of those things. If your loan is sufficient to cover that, and you have all the documentation associated with your loan, and there's no need for those additional funds, then ideally you want to keep an immigration application simple. If there is the need for you to bring on that sponsor because you need additional money to cover the duration of your program or cover your studies or things like that, then it could be worth bringing in the uncle. When you are bringing in a third-party sponsor, such as an uncle, you would want to demonstrate proof of relationship. You want to demonstrate where they have gotten their money from, demonstrate their bank statements. There's a lot that goes into it. So it really comes down to your individual circumstances and how much you need versus how much you have.
Perfect. Yeah. So I think again, when it comes to any type of sponsorship, there's a lot of things that are involved. You have to be able to prove where the funds are coming from. You have to be able to convince IRCC that you indeed have access to that. The things you've said there, married person over the age of this, there's no limit to who should have a sponsor and who shouldn't have a sponsor. So none of that should be a requirement, or it's something that you should be concerned about. As long as you're able to clearly articulate in your application where the source of your funds are coming from, and that the person that is sponsoring you will have those funds for you. I always say, if someone has never given you $1 in their life, they're not going to give you, IRCC is not going to believe that they're going to give you $30,000. So reason with me, just be very realistic with whoever you're choosing to be your source of, your sponsor. And you have to really, really convince IRCC that you will have access to that money when it's time for you to do the application and things like that. If you have a loan and the loan amount is sufficient, then you're good as well. But it doesn't hurt to always have more than is required. And that's where those additional funds might be helpful as well for your application. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I'm just going to scroll through here. This should be a quick one. And I'm attempting to gain 3 years of work experience or more. Is it okay if I have employment gap between jobs? It depends on, I'm assuming that you're asking this question for the aspect of PR. When you're looking to apply for permanent residency, if it's federal skilled, 1 year of consistent employment in one knock. After that, you could have multiple jobs, breaks in between, add them over a period of 10 years to get your points and things like that. So if you have gaps in between two jobs, it shouldn't really affect your eligibility as long as you've already qualified and things like that, if that answers that question. I'm going to try to get a question that is different. This one here, Ufoma has a question for a 29-year-old who will be 30 next year with a master's in economics with no outstanding work experience. When you say outstanding work experience, I wonder what that is. Who wants to start again in a worthy career in Canada and aiming for PR pathway? Please advise. Aisha, could you take this one?
Are you, sorry, I'm just trying to, are you inside the country or outside the country?
I don't think she's in country. She's looking to come to Canada. I think to summarize our question, it looks like, I want to come to Canada. Is it worth it? I'm about to be 30 to do a program and things like that. She already has a master's.
So sorry, I just want to clarify. Is this a study question? Are you talking about, should you go back to school to study, or are you inquiring about what type of career pathway you should take?
Yeah. If Ufoma, could you ask? I'm going to clarify the questions we've just asked. Then we'll be able to answer. So we'll just put that away. If you can ask again with more details, then maybe we might be able to assist you there. Okay. What is the easiest? This question. Okay.
Everyone's favorite question.
Everyone's favorite question. We're almost sure that we were going to get this question today. So Sharon, over to you.
Okay, the easiest way, there is only one way, really. So if you are in Canada as a visitor, there is a public policy in place currently until, I think, 2025.
Yes,
I think that's the extension,
whereby
you can apply for a work permit. You can switch your visiting visa. Well, not switch. You can apply, if you're a visitor, you can apply for a work permit. But there is a big but. You can only do this if you get a job offer from a Canadian employer who has a positive LMIA. So that means you can't just arrive in Canada as a visitor, go into McDonald's, get a job as a server, and get a work permit. You need to go and find an employer who is willing to support you, not financially, but they need to have an LMIA, which is a labour market impact assessment, which is essentially permission from the Canadian employment organization that shows that the employer tried to find a Canadian citizen or permanent resident to do the job and wasn't able to. Therefore, they've been given permission to hire a foreign worker. So it's not It's not that easy to obtain, but it could be. So essentially, for an employer to have an LMIA, they might already have one because the jobs that they are advertising are hugely in demand and they can't find anyone to do them, or they might be willing to apply for this LMIA in order to support your application. So generally, it's job employment opportunities that are either incredibly, so they need somebody with special skills, special knowledge, or jobs that are just enormously in demand. There's just a huge labor shortage and they just can't find people to fill them. So that's the very key thing. It needs to have an LMIA.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And it's very, very important, if you're listening to us, to know there's so much misinformation out there on this particular topic. A lot of people have been scammed on this particular topic. You're told you have a visiting visa, come into Canada, and you'll get a work permit. That's not true. I would even say, if you want to really guard yourself on your journey to immigrating to Canada, whenever you see the headlines, look for the details, because it's in the details you will know how easy that immigration program is, or that pathway is. In fact, majority of the immigration pathways to Canada are not. There's always something that you're not eligible for. Literally just go in, starting by looking for what would make me not eligible for this announced pathway, and you will find it. And then you'll know it and know what to do. So for all those visitor to work permit, you need to have an LMIA, and LMIAs are not easy to get. Employers in Canada go through a rigorous approval process before they can hire. You have to show your financial documents. You have to prove that you're a good employer. You have to prove that you have the money to pay the worker you're hiring. A whole bunch of scrutinizing application before they can get that positive LMIA to provide it to an employee, a potential employee, to now apply for work permit. So while it is possible, and there are people who have transitioned this way, it is not very, very easy if you don't have an employer who is willing to go through all that process to get you on board. Okay.
It's probably worth pointing out here as well, the program you mentioned earlier, Florence, the Rural and Northern Immigration Program, so the RNIP.
RNIP, yeah.
Do not require an LMIA to hire a foreign worker. So
yeah.
If you are in a province or if you are outside of Canada and you look on this RNIP website, it's a really, really good program. If you were to find a job offer there, your employer doesn't need a labour market impact assessment because they're part of a program which is exempt from it.
Exactly.
So it's a good program to look for if you are looking for a work permit or permanent residence in Canada.
Yes. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. We have this question here, Funke. Oh, thanks, Funke. Looking great, ladies. Thank you for the compliment. For a separated couple who is in the process of getting divorce certificate and had just received an invitation from IRCC, what would be the best approach to adopt? That's a very good question. I'll take this one. So these types of situations can sometimes be very complex, but you're telling me now that they have just received an invitation to apply. So which means that they have not submitted a PR application yet. The first thing would be, if she takes off her spouse from this application, so they're not divorced, they're probably separated. If she takes off the spouse from this application, would she still meet the minimum CRS for the invitation that she got? That's the first thing. If the answer is yes, that she would still meet the minimum cutoff, she'll be and above the minimum cutoff, then all she needs to do is disclose in her application that there is a separation here. They're no longer together. This person would not be accompanying her on the application, and proceed to submit the application. Now, if there is no divorce certificate, and this is me telling you what might happen ahead, if by the time IRCC is looking to make a decision on that application, the divorce certificate does not come and it's just separation documents, IRCC might still ask that spouse to provide medicals, police clearance to screen that person. I actually had a client who had this. When that request came, because we had submitted the application with separation documents, and when the request came, thankfully a day after the request came, or the day it actually came, the final divorce documents came. So it was great, because the moment we sent that in, the case was closed. That person did not have to have the other person do medicals and police clearance and all of that. The reason IRCC would do that, even in the case of like a separation, sometimes I find is because they could make up again and come back together. So IRCC still wants to check for all of those aspects of admissibility before they conclude the application. So it really depends on the situation that this person is at and how it would impact the eligibility for the ITA that they already received. Yeah. Okay. I hope that answered your question. All right, let's go on here. Karina has a question here. Hi, I finished medical school in Romania. I received the title of doctor. I would like to immigrate to Canada. I want to carry out my medical activity there. How long will it take to get PR? Sharon.
There are a few questions in there.
Yes.
I'm not sure what you mean, Karina, by I want to carry out my medical activity. Does that mean you want to work as a doctor? I mean, that's what I'm thinking. So I think the first thing to point out here is that if you qualified as a medical doctor in another country, it doesn't necessarily qualify you to work as a medical doctor in Canada. Yeah. So along with many licensed professions like architects, teachers, being qualified in a different country you can't just come into Canada and work as a doctor. You'd like to emigrate to Canada. So I couldn't tell you the exact ins and outs of what you would have to do to relicense yourself in Canada. But if you arrived in Canada as a permanent resident, you would have to do various steps. It would very likely involve you having to go back to school, probably not to redo it all again, but to maybe redo certain aspects of your medical professional license to show that you can do that in Canada. And that's even the case between provinces. If you qualify as something necessarily licensed to practice in Nova Scotia, the provinces are very different. So it would also depend on which province you wanted to go to in Canada. In terms of how long it would take to get PR, that depends on which program you apply through. If you applied through Express Entry, they're claiming that 80% of Express Entry applications are being processed within 6 months right now. I don't know how necessarily true that is. But if you apply through a provincial program, they tend to take a little bit longer. Provincial programs could take 12 months. I think provincial programs are looking at around about a year at the moment. Mm-hmm. So in terms of how long would it take to get PR, it very much depends on which program you are looking to apply through and what you're eligible for.
Yeah, perfect. And Karina, really the first place would be, you've just graduated. Do you have work experience? IRCC right now is prioritizing health workers. So if you have work experience and you would meet the minimum requirement to get into the Express Entry pool, that might be a great first place to start. There are also provinces that are also recruiting medical doctors. So it would really depend on how much experience you have since you've completed medical school and things like that. That would really determine what you would be able to get. If you don't have work experience right now and you've just finished medical school, it would be good to look into getting that work experience. 1 year work experience can get you into the Express Entry pool, but maybe your scores may not be as high, but it's also a good place to start. To do the language test, do your educational credential assessment. Is different from medical doctors, the credential assessment that they have to that you guys typically have to go through. Get that completed, have an Express Entry pool profile, and start opening up yourself to opportunities in Canada as well. BC has a health match system where they match health professionals with occupations. Nova Scotia has something as well. Those are some provinces that you can start looking at. But a one-on-one session with either Sharon or Aisha here could be helpful to really map out what your options would look like and detail that for you, so then you could go after looking at those to see what how you can get to PR. All right, perfect. So for everyone listening as well, lots of the things that we're discussing and answering, you could see that one of the things that happen with Canadian immigration is that it's hard to actually give a hard yes, this is it, this is the way, because there's so many questions that we always need to have, so much information we need to look at to be able to determine what the options are for you. Canada has over 80 immigration pathways. So just that alone tells you that there's a lot of opportunities there, but you need to sit down with someone who actually understands and knows exactly what to do and things like that. So this is where our consultations typically come into play. You could book a session with a consultant who would sit down, and what we do on our consultations are not just really rushed consultations. We assess your profile. We show you how to calculate your scores. We play different scenarios for you to say, if you do this, this is what will happen. If you increase, just like Sharon said, by just taking that French exam, we can show you what that impact would be to improve your chances of getting to PR and things like that. The good thing about those calls are you walk away from those calls with an action plan, a list of steps and opportunities and options for PR that you can actually explore and things like that. So it's right on our website. I'm going to drop the link here for you. If you want to book that one-on-one so that you can get more tailor-made advice, then that would be very helpful for you as well. Okay. So there's a question here, trying to go through a lot. I can't believe that 7 minutes has already gone by. Oh my goodness. And there's a lot of questions. Hi, Florence and team. Why do GCMS not take forever? It's been 91 days. What do you do? I know you're not the only one. We have clients as well that were waiting for GCMS note forever. If you've already requested GCMS note, follow up with IRCC again for it. Ask them for it. They should come back typically in 30 days, but I'll be honest with you, we've had some that have taken 6 months or more to get GCMS note. So you can follow up with them, and really patience is the game on this journey to immigrating to Canada. Just wait, follow up with them, and hopefully it's going to get back to you as soon as possible. Yeah. All right. I think I'm going to answer this other LMIA quick question here. Are there any agencies that help with LMIA tech jobs? Are you asking for agencies that help employers apply for LMIA? We do help employers apply for LMIA. We don't necessarily help you match you with an employer at this time, but if your employer is looking for a firm to help them walk through the complex LMIA process, we at InfoPlace Canada can definitely assist with that. So if that's what you're looking for, you can definitely reach out to us, ask at infoplacecanada.ca, and we'll be able to work with you. All right, we have Equalizer here. There's a question here. Equalizer said, please, I just applied and my biometrics is on October 27th. My school is resuming on the 2nd of January. How long does it take to get a response from IRCC so I don't miss my admission? Aisha, over to you.
Okay, so study permit processing time right now, I believe, is 7 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
7 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard to tell with IRCC. You'll have some applications that get decisions made after 1 week after you've completed your biometrics. Some of them will take 3 months. Some of them will take 1 month. It's really difficult to say. We hope and we anticipate that IRCC will make decisions within their processing time. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So the key thing is being informed on, what's going on with your application. Keep an eye on your portal. Make sure you're not missing any information. If there's any, additional document request or any request that comes in from IRCC, you want to keep in mind what the deadline is, respond to them as quickly as you can. The other thing is keep your school informed. You want to be aware of your school's deadlines. If, there is a deferral deadline or if there is a tuition payment deadline, whatever the case is, keep in contact with your school because they want to be made aware. Sometimes we'll see situations where intakes get full and, the student is not informed of that or they're not aware of that or you might have to defer, whatever the case is. Keep in contact with your school, keep an eye on your portal, but ideally we do want to see decisions made in 7 weeks, and that's about how long it takes. But if you have a more complex application, it could take longer, could be shorter. Just be patient. That's going to be the running theme throughout this session. Just be patient.
Yeah.
I know how you guys feel. I know what it's like, the anxiousness and everything that you're experiencing, but IRCC will take as much time as they want. So sometimes you guys just, be patient and hope for the best.
Perfect. Well, that's a nice message. Thank you very much, Ade. Happy you guys are doing this. God bless you for this Canada. Thank you very much. And Angela, waving from Saskatchewan. Hi, thank you for joining today. Thank you, Angela, for joining. We have, I'm just going to skip here.
I think Ufuoma came
Ufuoma
back.
has provided additional. Let's see. What do you advise? Well, she asked a different one actually. She said, what do you advise about study loans? Is it worth it for just any program? What province can easily help with jobs that can pay back loans while also being easily giving PR, especially for people 30 plus?
Okay, so that's complex. I see your response. I'm looking in the comments here. I know you clarified that you have no work experience. You're 29, will be 30 next year. You have a master's in economics and you want to come to Canada to start a career, but also aiming for PR. So you're just looking for province suggestions. So from what I gathered, just based on this short message that you left, you don't have any work experience. And if you are looking at getting PR, typically the minimum requirement is at least 1 year of skilled work experience. And the important thing is that it is skilled. So we have tier systems, and there's, you want to fall within tier 0 to 3 and at least have 1 year of skilled work experience. It should be full-time and it should be continuous. So you don't want to have any gaps in that employment for that 1 year period to qualify. And that would be for the FSW. So as of right now, it doesn't sound like you would qualify for PR through traditional express entry. You have a master's already. So depending on the type of program that you're looking at doing, you want to kind of think about how you're going to justify it to IRCC. So with the study permit application, a very important thing is that you justify what you're going to gain from this further education. So keep that in mind. But if you're looking for a good province, I would maybe say look at Manitoba. Out of all of the ones, New Brunswick is an amazing province. But New Brunswick, in order to qualify for what one of their streams, which is the student connection, you need to qualify for express entry. And in this case, it doesn't sound like you don't. So maybe look at somewhere like Manitoba, where, if you have 6 months of work experience and then you get a job offer, you could qualify for PR there. But again, Ufuoma, we'd have to have a more detailed session. So if you want to talk a little bit more, maybe we can have a PR consultation or a study and PR consultation, and we can discuss this in a little bit more detail. And yeah, for the second part, study loans, I don't know what you mean by, is it worth it for just any program? I don't know how exactly to answer that, but if you are able to get a study loan to help assist you with the proof of funds, then that is definitely an option. In terms of getting a job that can help you pay back loans, that it really comes down to you. Yeah, that's not a straightforward answer.
Yeah, and I think when you said job to pay back loans, I'm like, as an international student, there's little or no loan inside Canada that you would be able to get. So it would be loans from your home country or wherever you're in that you'll be looking at to show for that study in Canada and things.
And also, as we said, earlier, most international students can usually only work up to 20 hours a week. So just keep that in mind. That's very important to know.
Very important. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Aisha. I'm an international student. I want to defer my admission from winter 2024 to fall because I'm afraid I would not get my study permit in time. Do I have to inform IRCC of this deferral? Sharon?
Yes.
Yes. Very simple.
It's the simple answer to that one.
Simple answer. Yes.
So if you've got admission in January, I'm assuming that's what you mean by winter 24.
Yeah.
You've got admission in January. If you want to defer, then speak to the school first, find out what the deferral policy is. If you're going to defer September next year, then by all means you have to just update IRCC with the school sometimes gives you a new letter of admission, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes you might need to sometimes the school just sends an email and says, we can confirm that you have deferred your admission. You will not receive a new letter of admission. And you can update IRCC by sending them a screenshot of that email that says, I can confirm that I have deferred my admission to September. And then they know exactly what you're doing.
Perfect. That's good. And I would add here, it is very, very important. We have had a situation where IRCC would come back and ask for that updated admission letter if they don't make a decision by the start date of your admission. And you have to send that in, because if not, an application could be refused because they don't have the right start date for you. So if it's coming up to when school should start and you don't have that admission, don't wait Don't wait to say, I'm going to wait till the last drop of December 31st to do it. Just send it in. If a decision comes and it's positive, you can always walk around that with your school and things like that. It's always absolutely important to have an active admission offer on your application at all times. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see here. We have a proof of funds question. Kenneth has a question here. It said, for proof of funds, requirements for study visa is 70K Canadian enough for a family of 7 to show to the visa officer. Tuition
Cost
excluded. Family of 7.
That's a big family.
Yeah. That's a big happy family. Good for Canada.
Yeah.
Aisha, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's proof of funds. So IRCC at the minimum wants to see that you have sufficient funds for 1 year. And that's just the minimum requirement. So when we're looking at tuition being excluded, you want to have your tuition fees. That's number one. But for living expenses, it's $10,000 per year for you as a principal applicant, $4,000 per year for your spouse or whoever your second family member is, and then $3,000 per year for every other accompanying family member. So for you guys.
So if I could tell you what that is, I was doing that calculation.
Thank you, because I was going to go get my phone and do the math.
So it would be for living expense alone, for a family of 7, you'll be looking at a minimum of 39,000 Canadian dollars.
Yep. So that's for 1 year. You want to add your tuition costs. And then what you also want to do is add your travel expenses, a flight ticket to and from Canada. So that's some bigger. Yes, yeah. For your whole family. For all 7 of you guys, a flight ticket to and from Canada. That's what you want to include in your proof of funds calculation. So that's that. That's for 1 year. Ideally, if it's a longer program, if you have a 2-year program, ideally you want to have enough money for the full 2 years. Yes, IRCC says you need at least 1 year as a requirement, but what they say and what we see in practice is not always the same. Especially if you are self-sponsoring, if you or your spouse or the people who are included on that application are the ones bringing the funds, you want to have enough money for the full 2 years, or else IRCC is likely going to inquire about how you will get the money to cover the 2nd year or the 3rd year or however long the program is. So that's what you want to keep in mind. Tuition fees, living expenses, travel expenses. You want to have that for the full duration of your program, in short.
In short. Yeah. And honestly, the duration of the program is very important for you to know. And just like Aisha said, they may not come around asking you anything. If they don't see it in the document, they'll just send you a nice refusal. So the best thing that you can do is ensure that you have more than enough money. So with 70,000 Canadian dollars for a 1-year program for a family of 7, tuition fee not included in that, it looks like you have enough money. But if we're talking about a 2-year program, you probably don't have enough money. Mm-hmm. And it's important because if you and your spouse are the main source of raising those funds, and now you both are planning to come to Canada, then you need to have everything up front, because who's going to raise the money? Yes, there's an option of, I'll get a job and work in Canada. What if you don't find a job? This is the reason why IRCC wants to see everything up front before you even begin your studies here. Okay, let's keep rolling. Let's see. We have so many questions. Perfect. Thank you for your feedback. Do I still need to have the minimum POF in my bank account for my PR application if I already have a paying job in Canada? Sharon.
This would depend on what PR program you're applying through.
Yes.
I need to have the minimum proof of funds in my bank account. So if you're applying through Express Entry as a skilled worker, we would need a bit more information about this. It depends. Yeah. You have a job in Canada in a tier 4 position, which leads me to believe that you're perhaps not applying through Express Entry. You're thinking of applying through maybe a provincial program. And some provinces, it depends on the program you're applying through. If some of them don't require proof of funds at all, if you're already in Canada and if you're already working. Other ones, they do have a minimum proof of funds, but it will depend on the the individual province, because
individual province, yeah.
each province has different, and different programs have different proof of funds. So express entry higher than the proof of funds you need for, say, the rural and northern immigration program. And some you might need proof of funds depending on the type of job it is, depending on we would need a bit more information to know how much your proof of funds would need to be and whether you would need to provide it.
Yeah. And also, just even for the most popular pathway, which is express entry, that a lot of people do know about. If you were applying through express entry, if you're applying through federal skill, even if you're in Canada and you already have a job offer, you still need to show proof of funds. The only time you don't have to show proof of funds through an express entry pathway is if you're applying through Canadian Experience Class. Federal skilled worker, provincial program, FSW, you need to show proof of funds, even if you're in Canada and you have a job. Only if you have been invited through Canadian Experience Class is when you don't need to show proof of funds. And then, of course, all the different provinces, file pathways, and rural northern immigration and Atlantic have their own specific proof of funds requirement through them as well. So it really depends on which particular pathway you will be looking to explore as well. I always just honestly advise everybody who is looking to apply for PR, because you don't know what pathway you're eventually going to find success to apply. Always just have your POF, just in case you need it. Have a plan for where those funds are going to come from to support your settlement, because it might come in handy for you. Okay. All right. Temi Tokwe has a question here. My family's application was refused on grounds that they are not sure if I am in a DLI and if I'm attending the course, even after supplying necessary documents to prove it in a reconsideration letter. That's interesting. With this refusal grounds here, it's unfortunate. First of all, I apologize. Sorry that happened to you. It's always tough, always difficult whenever a refusal is received, because a lot of plan and time goes into doing this application. So if you indeed registered in a DLI, there's a website on Canadian Immigration website where you could verify if your school is a DLI. And if indeed your school is a DLI, then there is no grounds for that type of refusal. A request for reconsideration might be able to change things for you. Except, and be careful, because there are certain DLIs where specific courses in those schools are not covered as for international students. So it's not just enough to look at your school and say, hey, it's a DLI, but it's to look at if all the programs in that school are qualifying DLIs. So that might be something that you need to look at in more detail before writing back to IRCC. And if that doesn't work, hopefully you can find the same program or something close to it that you can explore in other DLIs in Canada. Roxanne has a question here. Is there any other pathway that doesn't require IELTS or WES? That's a good one.
I don't think so. I think most pathways have an IELTS. You need proof of English for express entry. You need proof of English for RNIP. You need proof of English for most provinces. AIP. And WES is, for those of you who don't know, it's the ECA, the Education Credential Assessment. So they want to verify your previous education is in line with Canadian standards. So, I mean, if you're talking about PR pathways, I would say in most instances, you're going to require IELTS or WES, and WES, not or. You will likely need both.
Yes. And when people ask this question, I think we've done a post like this a very long time ago, because we used to get it a lot in our DMs online. And I think I said, pathways that don't require PR, should IELTS or WES? I should tell you? I'll tell you. There's some of them. So we have parents and grandparents. Listen, parents and grandparents. Are you one of them? You might be able to get PR without applying. Spousal sponsorship. Are you married to a Canadian or a permanent resident in Canada? What Aisha just talked about is more of the skilled worker pathway. If you're a skilled worker and you're looking to come, there's almost none of those pathways that would exempt you from IELTS or WES. But parents and grandparents, spousal sponsorship, humanitarian and compassionate grounds, all these other ones that people rarely qualify for them, that don't require PR, but a lot of times people don't qualify for those particular ones. So if you're a skilled worker, and you want to come as PR, just apply for, get the Western IELT done. That's what's going to most likely get you here.
And get the highest level English results possible, guys. Study for your IELTS, study for your CELPIP, study hard. I know a lot of us are native English speakers and we speak English in our home countries, but those English exams can be trickier than you think. So study, get the highest points.
Perfect. Perfect. Yes. Thank you for adding that.
It's also, just quickly, it's also probably worth pointing out that for some provincial pathways, that the score that you need for your English or your French, you can do French, French as well, is a lot lower.
Yes.
So, like, to apply for express entry, you need to have a CLB level 7. But for a lot of provincial pathways, depending on the level of your job offer, sometimes you might only need a 4.
Yes.
Like basic level of English. So it's not like a super scary, like I've got to get top grades in all of my English speaking, reading, writing, listening. Some of them you really do need quite a low level of language test, but you do need the test.
You do need it. And that's also really for people who, like, if you're in like low skill jobs, the language requirement is less. But if you're high skill, like all the express entry and stuff, just listen to Aisha, do that. If you're low skill, don't put yourself under pressure. Just like Sharon has said, you might be able to get in just with a CLB4. You can't believe it, but it's possible. Yeah. All right. Thank you, ladies. So Peridita has a question here, and it says, please, if I complete my school that doesn't give me PGWP, what can I do to remain in Canada? Sharon.
We do come across this sometimes, and I think a lot of the time people don't realize that their school doesn't offer them a PGWP. Now, in Canada, if you're not eligible for a postgraduate work permit, for those who don't realize, the PGWP is a postgraduate work permit. So the work permit that you're given after you, generally, once you've graduated from a program in Canada, if you're not eligible for that, your options are slim. You can try and apply for a permanent residence route if you are eligible for permanent residence, and you can submit an application for permanent. Or you can try and find a job in Canada, and you might be able to do what we talked about earlier on, and you might be able to gain a work permit that way, an employer-specific work permit. So it would be a postgraduate work permit. It's an open work permit, so you can work for any employer you want in Canada. But if you were to find an employer with this positive LMIA, the Labour Market Impact Assessment, you might be able to turn, to become a worker in Canada. Otherwise, I would say your option is try and apply for a permanent residence program. Try and find a job or try and apply for PR.
Yeah.
Or go back to school.
Yes, I was going to add that. Go back to school.
Apply for another program in a school which does offer a postgraduate work permit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, Sharon has covered all of it. Those are all the options that you'll have on the table. It's really just assessing those and see which ones would work for you. For some people, working on multiple options at the same time might be great, because the last thing you want is to be totally out of status while you're in Canada. So we find a lot of people who are in your situation immediately apply for another program that would make them eligible for PGWP while looking for that employer, while PR pathways that can get them to PR. The last thing you want is to remain country without status. The moment you don't have status, you should leave. If you want to stay, try to have a temporary residence visa that allows you to stay in the country. Don't work, don't go to school until you have the right permits to allow you to do that. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So a lot of the questions that I'm seeing here are some of the things that we've already answered and talked about, and some of them are very, very specific in nature. And I'm just going to say that again. For some of you that are asking, what is my specific pathway? It's really difficult to tell you this is your pathway with just information like I have a master's, I'm this old, and things like that. We would need to look deeper into what you have and things like that, what your overall profile looks like, to see what your options for PR would look like. It would be important for you to have IELTS before you even get on that call, or sometimes people don't even have it, and we can estimate what your scores would look like and what your chances would be like before you get in there. It is really important that you have that call, or you do that research for yourself to see exactly what it is, calculate your CRS score, potentially what it might look like and all of that. But to generally just say, what are my PR options for me? Like we said, there are over 80 pathways. So it really depends on your own unique profile to see what would work best for you as you look to come to Canada to study and things like that. Okay. And one of the things that I would say too is, for people who are looking to come to study in Canada, pay close attention to what Canadian immigration is focusing on. With the changes that we've seen this year, there's a big shift happening right now with even the options to become PR. Sharon talked about French language being very important and being creating more opportunities for people. French category gets invited through the express entry pool. And if you look at historically what the scores have been, they're very low. They're targeting folks in tech, in health, in transportation, in agriculture, and things like that. So if you're listening here and you have work experience in any of those fields, then it means that it might be beneficial for you. You might have an opportunity to come as permanent residents and things like that. But the key thing is having a plan from the beginning. And also, before you get to Canada, it's no longer okay to just show up in Canada to study and have no plan on how you'll get to PR. It is important that you are discussing this, you're looking into this from the get-go. Aisha, if you could just put our consultation website link there, that would be great. We have a PR consultation, a PR and study consultation. And what that consultation does is it looks at your PR options. And if your PR options don't look so great from being out and you still want to study in Canada, we look at your study plans in Canada and we try to see how best we can come up with a plan and redirect you to a province that, given your own credentials, given your work experience and things like that, and the program you're even looking to come study in Canada, you would be better positioned to get to permanent residence at the end of your study. So those are the things that we do. If you're already here and you're already studying and you want to know what that PR pathway is, just like I said, there's the standalone PR consult, and that's where the consultants will go into a lot of details and look at your profile, assess it, and advise you on exactly what you need to do and things like that to help you study and all of that. Okay. I'm just looking through here. It's 1 o'clock. We're supposed to be here for an hour, so I'm going to leave another 10 minutes here. And we're just going to take some last questions. I can see lots of questions, and like I said, we will not be able to get to all of it, but I'll try to pick a couple more here that we can answer as well. Someone has this question. Hello. Is it possible for someone to get to PR from 1 year, from studying just a year in Canada? Aisha.
Studying just a year, if your only qualification is studying, probably not. It depends. Do you qualify for a pathway? Which do you qualify for express entry? That's going to be the first thing. If you qualify for express entry, great. What province did you go to school in? What kind of program did you complete? Do you have any Canadian work experience? There's so many things that go into determining if you're going to be eligible for a PR pathway. But if you're looking to just come to Canada, study, do a 1-year program, and then automatically get PR, unfortunately, it's not that simple. There's a lot more that goes into it than just that. So if you are looking to come to Canada as a student and your long-term goal is PR, be very strategic about the type of province that you choose.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times people say that because with a 1-year program, you'll be eligible for a 1-year PGWP. So people are really concerned if in 1 year I'll be able to transition to PR. And this is where our consultation really comes in, because we will assess to say, given your profile, if you study in Canada, would that really boost your score significantly to receive an ITA, or will you be located in a province that you'll have pathway to apply immediately you complete your program? For example, New Brunswick has that. If that's your case, you have an express entry profile, you have that, sure, you don't even need more than a 1-year program. We have a lot of clients who have done 1 year and have successfully transitioned. But if you're in a province like Ontario, you're in a province where you're doing a program and it's not a master's because you don't have options for non-master stream education, right? You're doing a 1-year program, you're calculating your score for express entry and other immigration pathways, and you're seeing that you're falling short, and it means that you need that 1-year Canadian experience to boost that additional 40 points to get you to where you want to be, to maybe closer to the 500 and things like that. Then you're really in a tight corner. You need to start thinking about what you want to do. If at that point you should be instead of applying for that PGWP, because remember, you can only get the PGWP once. Instead of applying to that, should you be considering a second program, which would then give you 2 years, so then you can get 3-year work permit. So there's a lot of things that you have to think about and really assess. And those are the scenarios that I'm talking about that you need to know for yourself before you actually just even arrive, or before you just settle and say, yes, I know how I'm going to get to PR. So those are the areas that you would need to focus on. So that you can get to PR with a 1-year program, but it depends on your overall profile to determine if that's actually really possible. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Perfect. This person has a question. T has a question. Can anyone outside of Canada from anywhere in the world apply for an open work permit? It doesn't sound that way to me, but I'm not sure. Aisha, go ahead.
It's not that simple. That's the thing. When it comes to Canadian immigration, guys, there is always more than what meets the eye. For an open work permit, there are very specific eligibility requirements. So if you are the spouse or a common law partner of a student who is in a DLI in a PGWP eligible program, you might be eligible for an open work permit. If you are the spouse of a skilled worker, you could be eligible for an open work permit. There are a couple different other ways that you could be eligible for an open work permit, but just being outside the country and there's no family connection, you're not the partner of somebody who is in the country, either studying or working, and you don't meet any of the eligibility requirements, you wouldn't be looking at an open work permit. Your option at that point would look, try to locate a position where there is an LMIA. And that's that. But with the LMIA, it's not an open work permit. I want you guys to know it's a closed work permit. You are tied to that employer. So for open work permit, it's very specific. There are very few people who do qualify to get an open work permit.
Perfect. Yeah, that's right. Thank you for that. Okay. Someone has a nice question here. Said, when do you suggest I use a consultation service after or before my ITA, my CRS score is 506? I would say at any point, but usually what we find is it might not hurt to have the conversation, so then you know that 1, you have actually claimed all your points, and 2, that you have all the documents that you would, because on the call we would discuss and tell you the types of documents you would need based on your own unique situation to apply for PR. So at least you walk away from that call confirming that you are eligible for those 506 points or even more, and then you would also have a list of what documents you need to have in place should you receive an ITA and things like that. We also have people who contact us after they've received ITAs. Sometimes they've had to decline the ITA because maybe something was wrong on it, or sometimes we're ready to assist them with a review service or a full representation to represent them on the application. It's very, very important. And as you ask that question, I should add there, your history with Canadian immigration is super important in your application process. Because whatever you've told them before forms a history. And if you're doing your PR application and you're introducing your information, you better have good explanation for that and just make sure nothing is contradicting, because those could come up to be a source of a problem in an application as well. Okay, one more question here and we will go. So this is for you, Sharon. Sifel has this question that says, if you don't have a lot of cash to show, if I don't have a lot of cash to show as my proof of funds, but my dad, who is my sponsor, has a lot of cash and investment, is it necessary for me to have about 6,000 Canadian dollars in my account?
Okay, I'm not sure where you've got the 6,000.
That's what I was. Where did we get 6,000 from?
The $6,000 seems to be. I don't know where you've got that from.
Do your savings, which is good. So keep your money.
But no, I don't mean where you've got that from personally. I mean, I'm not sure where you've got that total from.
Yes,
$6,000 is not a necessary total to have for anyone. In terms of proof of funds, it doesn't matter if it's coming from you or if it's in your dad's account. It can all come from your dad's account and you don't need to submit an account at all. Or your dad can transfer the money into your account and you can submit your personal account, which has all the funds in it. So you don't, if somebody else is sponsoring you, there's no requirement for you to also submit a bank account. All the money can come from your sponsor if that's the way if that's the way you're going to do it. So if you don't have a lot of cash, that's fine. Your dad is your sponsor, so maybe your dad is going to supply his bank account, so provide that for the application, in which case it's not necessary for you to have a bank account that shows any money in it at all.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so you if you have a sponsor, you could do, there's no requirement for you to have money, but if you have, it's fantastic. You could include that in the application, just like Sharon said. So sponsor, then go with that as well. There's one more question here. This is probably going to be the last question that we're taking today as well. So Juliet has a question here. Is it possible for someone who has a 15-year study gap to come to study in Canada as an undergraduate? And can the person come with family, a spouse, and 3 children? Aisha, go ahead.
Sure. Okay, couple things here. So undergraduate. When you're saying undergraduate, when you have a 15-year study gap, what was your previous education? Do you have a previous do you hold a previous degree? Do you hold a previous qualification? If so, what is your justification? Why have you taken 15 years to do this program, and then now you want to come to Canada to study at the undergraduate level? So that's one aspect. If you do have a previous education, a previous undergraduate, it might be worth looking at something at the postgraduate level, whether that's a master's degree or a postgraduate degree or postgraduate diploma, certificate, whatever the case is. Either way, you're going to need a really good justification as to why you want to come to Canada to study. How is it going to aid your career once you go back home, right? So study permit application is a temporary residence application. A condition is that you are going to return at the end of your stay. So think about that justification and how it's going to aid you. And then coming with your family and your spouse and your 3 kids, do you have enough money? That's what it's going to come down to. Do you have sufficient funds to cover your tuition fees, your living expenses, your spouse's living expenses, your kids' living expenses, and travel costs for your entire family? If the answer is yes, and you guys have enough money, bring your family along. If you don't have enough money, that's when it might be worth just looking at you coming alone, or maybe bringing one of the kids, or however you can structure it. It really is going to come down to how much funds you have available.
Yeah, perfect. No, thank you. And Juliet, we've actually had clients who have honestly huge study gap. I think we once counted, we actually have a blog post on this on our website. We once counted close to almost 20 years of a study gap before the client came back to study. For that person, they had been working on their professional career, growing and things like that. We've also had clients who were stay-at-home moms. They did that and they're ready to re-enter the workforce. They're ready to do something for themselves, for their profession and their career. And those are all good reasons. Like Aisha said, we need to just be able to articulate what you've been doing in 15 years in that application, and then you should be good to go if you meet all of the other requirements and things like that. And as we're wrapping up here today, I just want to say a couple of things, which is like with applications to Canada, it's very important that we're very patient. A lot of people get scammed and miss out on, and even getting to the point where they miss out on the opportunity of even coming to Canada because of desperation and not being very patient. Canadian immigration is tough. There are like over 2 million applications that they receive every year through different streams and people looking to come to Canada. In fact, yesterday I read a statistics that said 1.4 million people will be applying to study in Canada by 2027. That's a large number. So if you're looking to come, you need to know that it's not just about you. You're facing competition. You need to know that that visa officer is not just seeing only your application. They're seeing tons of application. So what makes your application stand out? You can't just send in an application that is average. You need to look into sending an application that is top notch, that answers all the officers' questions. There are no interviews. They're very impatient. They could refuse on anything. So you need to go very prepared. And this is what we do with our clients. When people choose for us to represent them, is more than just filling forms. That's not even where the work is. Filling forms is such easy stuff. But it's the strategy, is in how we pull your story together, is in how we make sure that you're being represented properly. And I always tell my team, every question that the officer would ask, let's make sure we're answering it ahead of time before we have that application submitted. And it's very important to know that nobody can guarantee you any decision. There's a lot of people that go out there, oh, I'm going to guarantee your family of 5, even your grandparents, everybody's going to be in Canada in 2 months. Don't fall for that, because someone is lying to you. If they could guarantee that, they would be in Canada themselves with their whole family and generations. So please, when you're out there looking for advice, seeking for advice, ensure that you're very objective as well. Ensure that you're also doing your research for yourself and pulling the information that you need, and double checking whatever you're being told, because most of the information is online and you'll be able to see that if you have time to research it. But if you don't have the time to, our team is always here. We are here. You can book a consultation with any of our staff and have a session that is tailored to you, and you walk away with advice and direction and clarity on what you want to do and how you can achieve it. Even if you walk out of that call not really qualified, but you will know what you need to do to qualify to achieve those Canadian immigration goals that you have and things like that. So, well, that's it for us. We're going to do this. The hope is to have a Q&A session like this every month. The earlier you join us, the better we're going to see the questions and have them answered immediately the session starts. So look out for the announcement for the one that we'll be hosting next month as well. Thank you so much, everyone that has joined. The video would be available on all platforms, so you'll be able to see that again. So thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Aisha, for joining. Do you have final words for everyone today? Sharon, you go ahead.
Yeah, it was really fun to hear some of your questions, and interesting. It's interesting for us on people's minds. It's interesting for, to hear, if you're looking to come to Canada, what your worries are, what your concerns are. I'm sorry that we didn't get a chance to answer everybody's question, but that's what time constraints are, unfortunately. So as Florence said, we're going to try and do this a lot more often. So please, if we haven't answered your question today, get in touch with us directly, InfoPlace, or we'll see you again at the next live session.
Perfect. Aisha?
Thank you guys for taking the time to join and ask your questions. This has been a lot of fun. Like Sharon said, I really enjoyed this. We have dropped the link in the chat there for a consultation. If any of you guys want to book a consultation, please feel free to do so. So that's there for you for any questions that you have that we maybe didn't get to answer, or we weren't able to answer, because, when you're looking at any sort of application, whether it's a study or a permanent resident application, regardless, there's a lot of information that goes into determining how we can best advise you. So just generally speaking, I hope it was enough. And if it wasn't, please book a session. We look forward to seeing you guys. And yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you in our next session next month. Thank you and have a great day.
Bye everyone.
Bye.